Good evening. It's 8 o'clock and we'll begin to start the meeting. Could I ask anybody apart from Robert who has their microphone switched on to switch it off, because then we don't get the echo. Thanks, Alison. I saw you switch yours off then. It's disappeared. If anybody else has got their microphone on, I'd be grateful if you switched it back, apart from Robert, of course. Welcome to the brave new world of webinars. It's with great pleasure, really, that I am going to be handing over the reins to Robert. I've known Robert a very long time, and I met Robert before he went to study for his PGCE in Spanish at Hope University, and was delighted when he came back to work with us in Warrington. And Robert is now an associate teacher with Primary Languages Network, after having been a classroom teacher and also a member of senior management in a primary school. We this evening are going to be looking at the theme of superheroes, and I will not say anything that will spoil what Robert's going to be talking about, but in front of you, you can see roughly the agenda of what he's going to speak about. Also, I'd just like to point out to you that we've got a new website for Primary Languages Network. It's worth going to have a look at. You can go to this website and you can contact us via the contact button, which would allow you then to have your own webinar, your own viewing of the VLE if you're not a network member, or to have a one-to-one webinar if you are a network member, because within your membership you have a free one-to-one webinar with our network coordinator. It's also through this website, by going to the enter website button and clicking through, that you'll get to the Active-Lingo shop, where if you're not a network member, you'll be able to access all the materials and resources that Robert is sharing this evening. And there are two bundles about superheroes that you may be interested in French and Spanish. If you're network members, then they'll all be on the VLE ready for you to use. Thank you very much for attending. I'm sure others will join as we work through the meeting. And if you listen afterwards, I hope you find it just as useful as the people that are watching it live. The only thing that you won't see if you watch afterwards is a short video of some of Robert's children. So I'm going to hand over to Robert now. I wish him good luck. I hope it goes well, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. I had a preview of this last week and was amazed by Robert's ideas and the way that he took simple language learning opportunities but made them into something very special for primary school children in a primary school learning environment. So good evening, Robert. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Janet. Buenas tardes. And thank you everyone for listening. I apologise beforehand if my voice starts going or I start coughing a la Theresa May at the moment. I have had a sore throat, so I'll battle through it and see how we get on this evening. So as Janet said, I'm going to be looking at the theme of superheroes. She did ask me a couple of months ago, could I do a local network meeting based on a topic of my choice? So I wanted to pick something that would really engage the children. So having a 10-year-old son, or soon to be 10 next week, I was thinking what my Ben likes, and he absolutely loves superheroes. His bedroom's covered in superheroes, and he loves watching all superhero films and having the figures. And it's very topical at the moment, isn't it, with all the superheroes films out at the cinemas and soon to come out at the cinemas over the next few months. So I thought, what a great idea to do superheroes and look at how we can do that in different ways within our primary languages lessons. So the first resource I want to show you tonight is a writing resource, actually. It's a writing frame that's taken from the Year 3 Autumn 1 unit of work on the Primary Languages Network, but it can also be accessed and just used independently, separate from the unit of work. The writing frame is used to help children write basic greetings in the foreign language. So if I just show you the writing frame now, up on my computer, where is it? There we go. Okay, so here you've got a picture of the writing frame. I took this idea and introduced the basic greetings to children in the foreign language. So we've got that in French and Spanish on the network resources. I began by doing the usual kind of things that we all probably tend to do when we're teaching how to ask your name, how are you, etc. And we just did some songs and games in class around that. But particularly with the Year 3, the younger children, this is aimed at. We did circle songs, so where the children sat down in a circle. We passed a superhero teddy or my Ben's Iron Man toy around the classroom, and we just sang the songs and the children introduced themselves. Then I introduced the idea of having it as superheroes. And I tend to find that even the kind of shyest and most retiring children, if you give them a persona that's not themselves, it really kind of brings the learning to life for them. So a lot of the children really enjoyed pretending to be superheroes to do this. So what I did was I just printed off some pictures from the internet to begin with of like Superman, Wonder Woman, Supergirl, etc. And once we'd learned how to say, how are you, what's your name, etc., the children then had their little superhero cutouts and they went around the classroom pretending to be those superheroes and introducing themselves and asking the questions in the foreign language. What I noticed with children, because both the questions, the key questions that we're learning here, how are you and what's your name, both start with como in Spanish, como estás and como te llamas, and the same in French, como ça va, como te vas. Lots of the children were sometimes getting a bit confused when they were asking the questions, giving the wrong answer because they just heard that first part, como. So I played a little game in class where I modelled it first of all with the whole class, and we had a beanbag, and I would throw the beanbag to children, and if they answered the correct answer, then they got to stay standing up, and they had to answer in their superhero persona, and if they didn't answer with the correct answer, then they had to sit down and they were out. So it really made children concentrate on the whole question, not just hearing that first part, that como. Once they got the idea of the game, I got them to play that tables and gave each table a beanbag. Once we practiced that a few times, the children then moved on to writing and performing in the foreign language. So working in pairs, I got children to, I gave them the writing frame within class, and we modelled one together first of all. So we did it guided and talked about how we could write a conversation out, almost like a play script as superheroes. So the children really enjoyed pretending to be superheroes. They wrote out their conversations on whiteboards, and then some of the children performed their conversations to the rest of the class. Now, my son, he's got loads of superhero costumes, and probably some of your children that you teach will have superhero costumes. So maybe if you tell them beforehand, they could bring some of them in for the performance. So I took in some of my son's masks during this performance, and I got the children to act out their key questions in the foreign language, dressed up as superheroes. I'm going to show that video now, Peter, if that's all right. Now, we've had a few issues. The children then went on to use the writing frame to write their own superhero conversations in the basic language. So you can see some here using our writing frames, which are in French and Spanish, that the children have wrote them, stuck them in the books, and they really enjoyed doing it. And it was just a nice way to get them writing and developing their writing skills in the target language. One thing that I did do with some of the children, if you're very techie, you could ask some of the children to actually animate their pictures. So if your school's got iPads, we use an app called Yakit, and I'll just show you this now. You probably can't hear what's going on, but I'll talk you through it. The children can put on the eyes and the mouth themselves using this Yakit app, and then they can record themselves saying their speech, saying their key questions and information about themselves in target language. So it's just another fun way that you can engage the children using technology as well and developing that aspect of it. So the second resource I want to go on to tonight. Any questions so far, Janet? Anything I forgot to mention?
Self-explanatory, and I think it's really interesting to see real children's work, Robert, and what you've actually done with them. I'm sure people appreciate what they are seeing and hearing. Keep going.
Yeah, will do. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you tonight is a unit of 3 lesson plans. I'll just show you where that is actually on the VLE network. So if you go to network resources, local network meetings, and autumn 17 superheroes, and here we've got a whole sequence of lessons called Let's Be Superheroes, and we've got them in French and Spanish. Now, I started to do these with Year 5 because Year 5 recently we've just been describing ourselves and describing how we're feeling, and we were looking at the verb to be in Spanish. And then I looked at this lesson that Janet had already done previously in the past, a sequence of lessons that we've got here, where the children learn to describe superheroes, looking at adjectives in the foreign language. So to begin this series of lessons, first of all, I started to ask the children what kind of adjectives they think they would use to describe superheroes. So we kind of collated them together first of all, and we looked at some of those. And then I introduced the PowerPoint, which you can find in the resources, this PowerPoint here. So we've got different adjectives to describe how the superheroes are. So I'm strong, I'm intelligent, I'm fast, I'm sporty, I'm brave. I'm kind, and you, how are you? And then we went through kind of that usual route of introducing new language. I got the children to kind of work out what they were first of all from showing them the pictures in groups. We looked at how to pronounce them in the foreign language. We played all those games like Simon Says, where the children obviously had to respond when I said the foreign language. Then once the children were feeling more confident, I got them to play that in groups or mime actions to each other, and the partner had to say which one they were doing. After that, the children just naturally they thought of their own adjectives and words to describe superheroes. So they wanted other words. So I thought, what a great opportunity to do some dictionary work. So the children then, in their books, they designed their own superheroes, and they used the words that we've been describing to describe their own superheroes, those adjectives. And those that felt more confident doing it and more able, they used the Spanish bilingual dictionaries too, to find their own adjectives to describe the superheroes. So you can see some examples here that the children have done. Whilst they were doing this, I thought, well, we've been revising personal information in the previous couple of lessons. So what a great opportunity for children as well to write a description of their superhero using that personal information. So what's your name, what's your age, where do you live, etc. All the things that kind of year 5 and year 6 know. We've been doing Spanish for a few years. And then once the children designed their superheroes and wrote all their adjectives at the side, then some of them wrote a description of themselves as that superhero, which they really enjoyed. And again, got to revisit previous learning in the foreign language. And they could apply previous learning in a context then, describing themselves as a superhero. And some of them actually enjoyed performing these, so the rest of the class was standing up and doing it in their best superhero voice, reading out what they'd done. You could even take that further if you wanted to, really, get them to create little performances and record videos of the children. They could even dress up, couldn't they, and create masks, etc., to be their superhero. I did have a couple of weeks ago, year 6s, just a small class of year 6, because the rest of them have gone on a residential. So because I knew this was coming up, I was trying to think of a way that we could maybe do this differently and introduce technology with it. So looking at this symbol here, this is the pic collage symbol, which some of you might have if you've got tablet computers or iPads in your school. When I had this group of year 6s, I did the same as year 5s. We did a little mini topic, because I had them for over 2 afternoons really. And we designed our own superheroes again. They really enjoyed designing their own superheroes, really took ownership of that. And then they went onto the internet using the iPads, and they took pictures of their superheroes, like you can see here, and using pic collage, they designed their own posters, designing superheroes. Now, I did give them free rein on this. So some of the children did like using Google Translate to try and find extra words that they could use to describe their superhero. Now, I know it's not always perfect, Google Translate, but it's good to give them an idea there. So it's good for picking up some of the language there. So I like this one on the right here, this child found. They've said, tengo telekinesis. I've got telekinesis, okay? So they've used some of the ones that I taught them in class, and then they've got some extra ones here. So soy indestructible, I'm indestructible. And it's just another way to kind of engage in the learner and get them to look at those adjectives. We also, when we were doing that, kind of naturally, we talked about masculine and feminine, and if we were describing a female superhero, how some of those adjectives would change. So in Spanish, obviously, those adjectives that end in O would change to an A if you're describing yourself. So soy rápido, soy rápida. And that was quite a good grammar point for the children, and they actually liked changing the adjectives to fit the superhero that they were describing. And when they were describing, when their partner was miming superhero actions to them, we played like a little game where they had to mime 3 actions and the partner had to say what the adjectives were. And then after so many minutes, the timer went down and they had to swap and find someone else in the classroom to be their partner. Once they'd done that, the children that were describing their partner, they had to say the adjectives in the masculine or feminine. I hope that I've explained that clearly. So for instance, if I had a boy and a girl working together, if the girl was miming super speed to their partner had to say it in the feminine form because they were describing what the girl was saying. So they'd say soy rápida, soy rápido. And it was quite a good way just to get the children practicing using masculine and feminine there. The next resource, I'm just racing through these. I apologise if I'm going too fast. It kind of follows nicely on from the describing superheroes, is a performance poem that I wrote. Now, that poem is in French and Spanish, and you've also got an English copy. We've also got sound files from native speakers reading out the poems. Now, this poem can be used in lots and lots of different ways and with lots of different age ranges. I'm just going to get the poem up here so you can see it now. So basically, the poem starts with, is it a bird, is it a plane? No, it's a superhero. And in the first verse, we're just saying what a superhero can do. A superhero can fly, a superhero can jump, a superhero can run, and a superhero can climb. Again, that repeated chorus, is it a bird, is it a plane? No, it's a superhero. Then we've got our adjectives of superheroes again. Superheroes kind, superheroes brave, superheroes sporty, superheroes intelligent, which links nicely to what some of the older children might be doing in class if you use the superhero describing unit. I envisage this poem being used in different ways. I've not actually used it yet because I've been doing some of the other superhero things in class, but I'm looking forward to using it after half term. And if not after half term, I'll probably come back to it later in the year. Obviously, that run up to Christmas gets very busy with all the kind of Christmas things, Halloween and bonfire night. But it's a nice one to return to later on in the year. I think with younger children, I might just pick one paragraph, one verse from this. So I might just pick this first one here, this first verse with some action verbs in. And I think what you could do with even year 1 and 2 and maybe 3, 4 is that they could just have that verse. And I might teach them that in the game first of all. So when I say the verb in the foreign language, they've got to do the action for flying, or when I say the verb for jump, they've got to do the action for jumping. Or you could even play the recording in class for that if you're not feeling confident reading it out in the foreign language, and listen to the native speakers saying the parts of the poem, and then your children could react to that and make sure they do the right action when they hear the native speaker do it. So for younger children, they could just pick part of that and just perform a section of the poem. You might ask them in groups to even just give them a line, and they've got to do an action for that line and practice it. And then you could film them in sections doing their lines, and then put it all together, and you've got a nice little performance there. And I think that'd be quite nice to do, even if you're doing a class assembly or something, having the groups of children stood along the kind of stage or at a front assembly and all performing their little section of the poem. Quite nice. For older children, you could introduce a poem and get them to perform the whole poem as a group, and it links in nicely, like I said earlier, with some of the adjectives that they've already been learning to describe superheroes. The way I would do this with children is, I think with some of my older children, I would start looking at some of the verbs here in class, because we've got the third person he or she can, the third person he or she is, and we've got the third person he or she has. Now, I'm looking for some of my older children to adapt this poem then, so that they could kind of change elements of it. We started to do this a little bit. We touched on it when we were describing superheroes, because the children naturally asked me, well, how do we say he can fly or I can fly? And because I'd only taught the children at that time, soy, I am, then I needed to introduce another verb there, and we had to do puedo, I can, in the foreign language. And I had to explain to the children a little bit about how, well, if we're using I can, we wouldn't use an adjective then, and we need to look for a verb in the dictionary. So I can fly, I can jump. So if you do the unit beforehand to this, describing superheroes and get the children to design their own superheroes, you might find that the children naturally ask all sorts of questions. Well, how do I say I can do something? Or how do I say he has this superpower? So that was quite good, getting the children to think carefully about whether they need another adjective or a verb to go with the verbs that are in the poem there. This could be done as a performance poem by the older children, where they perform all of it or just some of it, depending on their ability. And I was thinking they could even perform it to younger children. And some of it would be nice again to do in a class assembly at any point throughout the year if you wanted something in Spanish that we could perform. And again, if the children are anything like my children, they've got lots of superhero costumes at home, so they could always bring them in and perform that. So there's lots of different ways you can use that poem. Hopefully you'll find that one useful. I'm going to go on to the next activity now. This was an idea that I had to do with my year 4 children, because I knew that coming up we were going to be learning about items in the classroom. So this is superhero utility belt, so a bit like Batman. And I used to love Batman when I was a little boy, thinking of all the cool gadgets that he had on his utility belt. Now, to go with this resource, there is a PowerPoint, both in Spanish and in French, that just introduces some of the classroom items here. Not all of them, but some of the ones that you might need, okay? Just quickly flicking through that now. And on the PowerPoint, it's actually got a few little games that you can play with the children in class once you've once you've introduced those words with them. So this one I quite like, where one of the items disappears once the children know the words. and you can split the class into teams, you can get them to do it in pairs. It could even be a writing opportunity where the children write it on whiteboards, which one's missing, and see if they can recall the word or the written word for that item. And to be honest, a lot of the time, I'm not very strict with spellings when the children come to do this. As long as they've phonetically got it right, that shows me that they're aware of how to spell some of these words in the foreign language. So that's quite a nice activity. There's also one where you flash across the screen really fast. Great way to kind of introduce some of those classroom objects again with your children. Then what I did with the children was I gave them a challenge and asked them to design their own superhero utility belt that could be used in class. So on the network resources, you've got the PowerPoint, and you've also got, I'll just get it up and show that for you, you've also got a writing frame, okay? Now the writing frame is very blank at the moment, it's just got the words at the bottom for some of the basic things in your, that the children might use in class, some basic classroom items. I just drew on my writing frame, I just drew on a little utility belt picture. It depends, your children might be happy to draw their own from class. I drew that one on, it's really simple to draw, and photocopied that. You might decide that your children want to draw it themselves, okay, so you don't need to draw one on. What I asked the children to do then was to design their own classroom utility belt. So they put on some of the items that we learned and labelled them. But also, again, it was another great opportunity to use dictionaries. Lots of the children then had to find words like glue or scissors or things that we didn't have within our word bank at the bottom of the writing frame. So then they had to use those dictionaries to find those words and put those additional items on their utility belts. They really, really enjoyed designing these utility belts, and I played a bit of superhero music in the background while they were doing the work and concentrating. I think it's just a way to kind of like elevate a subject and just take it to a level that the children can really connect to. And this idea of utility belts, they've really found fun, and I've done it with a couple of year 4 classes now. They've really enjoyed that. What I'm hoping to do, I've not had a chance to do it yet, but I might do it the first week back after half-term holiday, is I was thinking of, you know, that border paper that you can get that you usually put around your display boards in the classroom. I wanted to give all the children a strip of that border paper, and they wrap it around the waist to make their utility belt. And say maybe like one table, you just put 6 post-its on your utility belt, and they all say the same word on, they all say pencil. And then another table, they all put 6 post-its on, and theirs all say ruler. So the children are writing out the word repeatedly for one classroom item. And then what I was hoping to do, if they've got all these items stuck to their utility belts, that the children can go around the classroom and then practice whatever phrase you want them to use for could I have, do you have, I would like, etc. Asking other children for items for their utility belt, and almost doing swaps and using please and thank you in the foreign language. And I've not tried that yet. It might be a classroom full of post-its all over the floor. We'll see how it goes. But I think it'll be really, really good fun and give them kind of a real context to walk around the classroom and ask other children, oh, have you got a pencil? Have you got a ruler? Have you got a rubber in the foreign language? And then by the end of maybe a set time limit of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they've got to check their utility belt at the end and see that they've got all those items on. If you're really crafty, you could even make some utility belts, couldn't you, and kind of cut out of card the different items, get the children to label them, and kind of make their utility belts in the foreign language. Well, again, just another idea there that you can use that links in superheroes, but kind of elevates something that the children probably need to use in this everyday language that they can use within the classroom, but just kind of puts it in a more fun context that makes it a bit more engaging for the children. The next resource that I'm going to go to is linked to daily routine. So this is a PowerPoint with some pictures of a superhero. It's actually my son. I had to offer him an extra hour on his Nintendo just so that he would do these photographs for me. And it's a picture of Spider-Man going through his daily routine. So you've got a PowerPoint of that daily routine, and it is in French and Spanish once again. Just show you that on the screen. And this kind of linked to year 6 at the moment. I've been teaching time, and I've just started to introduce daily routine with them. And I wanted kind of, again, thinking of superheroes and a bit of a different take on the normal daily routine, just to make it a bit more fun and engaging. What I'd done last year was I'd kind of got the year 6s to do almost like a comic strip. So once I'd introduced the daily routine, shown them the pictures, shown them the words, asked children to try and work out what they meant from the pictures, which you can do with the Spider-Man ones. I'd got them to do I'd kind of just printed off a grid using Word, where the children had like 9 boxes, and they had to choose 9 points in their daily routine that they wrote a sentence underneath in the foreign language, so in this case Spanish, and they linked it with time. So I get dressed at 7:15, I clean my teeth at 7:30, I have breakfast at 7:45, etc. So that was something that went down quite well last year. They really enjoyed doing the kind of like comic strip style. So I suppose this idea was taken from that to make it more overtly or obviously like a comic. So I got my son Ben to kindly volunteer to do these superhero pictures. And as I said earlier, he's, you know, perfect target market. He loves superheroes at the moment, so you can see from his bedroom there that it's all kind of superhero themed. But I've just started introducing these to the children this week, and they really enjoyed looking at the pictures. And I got them to pretend to be superheroes and act out some of the actions in their groups. And again, those kind of usual games where they're miming into each other, etc. Then what I did was I got one of the school clocks, because he'd previously been learning time, and they've got quite good at that now. This is with my year sixes. And I kind of mimed an action and put a time on, you know, one of those kind of those like plastic clocks that you've got in school where you can put the time on them and show them to the children. And then in pairs, the children had to write in Spanish the action and the time, linking it with it. We kind of did that a bit fast, so I think I'll have to go over that a little bit again with them. And then I got them to start doing that on their superhero comics. So they did their daily routine. Also kind of introduced these basic ones. I did introduce a few more that aren't on the PowerPoint, like I get ready for bed, I brush my hair, etc. But I think there's enough on this PowerPoint to be working away with. And again, if you want to use this just with your younger children, they might just do the daily routine and not link it to time. I think with your older children, it's a really good activity to get them to link it with time, especially if they've already learned time previously. Now, I wish I'd take some pictures to show you, but the children have just started doing the comics this week. And in fact, I was doing it with a year 6 class today. Again, I put my superhero music on in the background, and they really, really enjoyed doing this and creating their own superhero characters and doing their daily routine in their comic books. So that was quite a fun activity. I have told the year 6s that I was teaching today, I asked them at the end of the lesson and said, well, does anyone have any superhero costumes at home? And to be honest, the majority of the kids put their hands up and said they did. So I've said to them that after half term, when we finish doing their comic strips and finish doing daily routine with superheroes, that they can bring in their superhero costumes. And this school is fortunate enough that they've got iPads, enough for 1 between 2 or, you know, small groups. So I've told the children that if they want to bring in their superhero costumes, they can do. And next lesson, they're going to make their own videos showing their superhero routines, where they say what they're doing and the time that they're doing it at, dressed as their superhero, and do the actions. Now, I'm quite techie, and I've been the ICT lead within school before now, or the computing lead. So there's an app on iPads called iTunes Movie Maker, so where if it's really easy to use. But the children then, if they've done lots of little video clips of different parts of the day in their daily routine, they can edit them all together to make one long video. So I think they're really looking forward to doing that. They got excited when I said they could bring in their own costumes. If you've not got iPads and things in school, you know, you can always take pictures. The children could create their own PowerPoints, couldn't they? So like I've done here with Ben, they could take their pictures of doing the different actions. And again, it's another writing opportunity where they could, it's just a bit different to doing it to a comic. They could put it into a PowerPoint and write the time with that as well. Okay. The final resource I want to go to tonight is a superhero action game. Okay. Now, I got the idea from this. When I was younger, I used to go to a boys' brigade club and we used to play a game called Captain's Cubby. I don't think younger children know it as much nowadays unless they go to brownies or scouts, etc. This is the game where you say different things like captain's coming and everyone does a salute, or starboard, etc., climb the rigging, and children have to do all the actions for all those different things. So I thought, what a great idea to do this as a superhero game. So I'm just going to show you that resource here. So I've written the instructions out for that game. They're all here, and they tell you all the different actions, okay? So we've got super strength, so the children flex their muscles like a bodybuilder and shout, muy macho, okay? And you've got that in French and Spanish. They can fly, so they've got to balance on one foot and put their arms out in front of them in a flying position. Now, there are quite a few actions there altogether. There's about 10. Obviously, you can vary that and use it in different ways with with different age groups. So with younger children, you might want to just introduce 2 or 3 to begin with to get them to learn the moves. I thought it's a great cross-curricular game that children can use at the start of a PE lesson as a warm-up activity. Some of your children might even take ownership on that, and you can challenge them to go and play on the playground with friends and in groups. I did it a few years ago when I was teaching English unit on pirates, and I taught the children the actual Captain's Pirates coming game in English, and they absolutely loved it. This was with a Year 4 class, and I saw them doing it on the playground later on after we'd played it as part of our Pirates unit. So I think this could be one. I've not introduced it yet with the children myself, but I think this is one that they're really going to enjoy doing. Now, some of the older children, again, you might want to link it back to those describing superheroes and superhero poems. And they might want to adapt the game or even create their own game based on their own superhero powers that they found. So you could give them the challenge of that they've got to create their own game. Again, they could draw their own pictures for it, design it. They could take photographs of them doing it and make a PowerPoint for their game that they could introduce to younger children. You could even take them down to EYFS Year 1, Year 2 and get them to teach the game to those younger children. I've done that before now with things in languages, and the children, they get a lot out of that. I think the older children get a lot out of it because it puts them naturally in that position of responsibility where they've got to take ownership of the games and teach this language to the foreign language. So instantly kind of improves their own learning of the foreign language as you teach it to others. And then the younger children get a lot out of it because they're responding to the older children within the school, and they're learning some foreign language too. So there's a lot of scope there with this game that the children could, create their own game based on this once you've taught it to them. As I said earlier on, with older children, you could teach them the full game. I just did a very, very quick PowerPoint of that. Let me just show you here. We could have put this one on the network resources, obviously for copyright reasons, just due to because I'd taken the pictures online. But it was really easy just to copy and paste the pictures from Google Images into PowerPoint. So I've done here super strength, flight, climb the wall. Here comes the captain. And when I was planning this, I did say to some of the TAs at the school, I said, "Oh, what can I do for superpowers? Have you got any really good ideas?" So one of them said, "Oh, hasn't Superman got X-ray vision?" Well, I thought that one wouldn't really be appropriate for children. I was trying to think of an action that children could do, and I thought for X-ray vision, I did think like covering up the nether regions would be an appropriate action, so we left that one out. But there are lots of other kind of good ideas there, but they can come up with their own superpowers for that. That was really, really fast. I'm sure there's probably things there that I forgot to mention. I'm gonna pass back over to Janet now, because if you've got any questions, Janet, can you think of anything that I forgot to mention there, or maybe that I mentioned last time that I've not mentioned this time regarding those resources?
Thank you very much, Robert. I hope that everybody has really enjoyed what you've got to say. I've got to say that Robert speaks with ownership, and I would presume that you've heard that. Everything he's talking about, he's genuinely trying in the classroom and developing. And I liked the comment, Robert, when you said that you're trying to elevate it to another level. It's making primary languages very vibrant within the primary learning environment, and that is what we are all trying to achieve. I like the fact as well that you were talking about the children, for example, with Captain's Coming, making it a playground game. The children might play at any time during the year, but in the target language. Everything that you've seen here in Spanish exists in French, and quite a few of these things will be put into German. If you're not a network member, the bundles only cost $1.99 each, but you'll get most of the materials and resources you've seen here either in French or Spanish. If you are network members, then you'll know that this is just a very small part of a wonderful machine that the associates are helping me to create. And I'd just like to flag up that Robert will be delivering 2 more webinars this year, one in the spring term, and we've already talked about it might be around the Eurovision Song Contest, and the summer one, which I know Robert's got lots of ideas around, which are around Hawaii. But I'm going to ask Robert just to finish for us, if nobody's got any questions, and I can't see any coming up on the screen at the moment, but by just finally explaining why he thinks it's so important that primary languages doesn't sit as just a side subject, and how he's trying with these superhero activities to make it something very relevant and current, and why he thinks that is important. Just a small question to finish the webinar very briefly, Robert. Thanks very much.
Oh, you've got me on the spot there, Janet. Right, well, for me, as as a classroom teacher and as a language teacher, when I went into teaching, my kind of like motto or my phrase or my thinking was that I always wanted the learning to be fun and engaging. And I always think if children are having fun and it's a subject that's turning them on, it's something that's current with them, then the learning comes easier to them. So as a classroom teacher, you know, I've always dressed up as wizards, pirates, you know, like I was saying earlier on, I've done kind of like, you know, dressed as a pirate when the children were coming from break and like frightening them all and telling them that they all had to sit on the carpet because they were dirty landlubbers, etc. So I always try and pick subjects that are fun and engaging to children. And I think that's something that I just have to do as a language teacher. So to your point of why do I pick these subjects, I think these are kind of topics that are current with children. My son loves them, having a young 10-year-old boy myself. I love them because I'm a bit of a grown-up who still loves superheroes and comics and things. I'm not grown up myself and still love watching cartoons with my son. And the children that I've delivered these resources with, I've really enjoyed them and been really engaged with them. And something that I was going to mention to Janet earlier on was that I've actually had children bringing me homework, not homework that I've set them, but bringing me these superheroes that they've designed at home, boys and girls, and they've gone on the internet and found adjectives and wrote them about their superheroes. That, to me, that children are so engaged that they're actually of their own accord going away and learning the foreign language. It amazes me. It just shows what power of kind of choosing subjects that the children really enjoy and can really relate to has on them. For them to go home and have really enjoyed it so much that they've gone home and designed their own superhero comics and, you know, done it in Spanish. I mean, one thing I didn't mention before, you could even do your own comic, couldn't you, with kind of the language that you've been learning in class. So there's no reason you can't do a comic with superheroes having, you know, how are you in the foreign language? Como estás? This time muy bien. And, you know, doing those kind of shout outs. One of the ideas I said kind of earlier on that I didn't mention tonight is when they're doing the drama, you could even print off the big kind of speech bubbles, couldn't you, and do freeze frames and get the children to write what they're saying on those freeze frames. And that can kind of be done with any topic. I think picking a theme, sorry if I'm talking too much here, Janet, I think picking a theme that can be used in lots of different ways. Once you start delivering it, you kind of get loads of ideas of it. I mean, there's some that I've not even mentioned tonight, but it grows and grows and grows as you go along. You can do anything really linked to superheroes once you've got that kind of hook and got the children involved. And I've used even the basic conversations with year 5 and 6, and we've talked about what questions we've done previously. So moving on from the year kind of 3-4 stuff, and we've talked about what's your favourite colour, what subjects do you like to study at school, etc., etc. And they really enjoyed pretending to be superheroes, but doing it at a much higher level, those conversations. I hope that's kind of answered the questions at it.
I think I've got to say that, wow, I think Robert answered the question more than beautifully for us, and really, hopefully you can hear the immense passion he has for bringing languages into the classroom and bringing it to life. Just to finish, I'd really like to thank Robert, and if you could hear us, I'm sure quite a few of us who've been listening online would like to give him a round of applause. There are about 80 people that have signed up for this webinar, so other people will be listening at a more suitable time for themselves. And I hope they find it as inspiring and enjoyable and useful as you have. Watch out for the next webinar. It will be advertised on Twitter, on Facebook, via the network coordinator's emails from Catherine. Everybody is welcome. We hope you take the ideas on. Please share with us any pictures and resources. What Robert said just at the end then about the children going home and doing extra work for him, for me, sums up the whole purpose of what we're trying to achieve here, to inspire young children to want to learn a primary foreign language and want to explore it, and explore it in ways that they really enjoy. There are local network meetings held in the Northwest that will happen next half term, in Sefton, St Helens, in Warrington, in West Cheshire, in East Cheshire, in Manchester. If I've forgotten anywhere, I do apologise. In Knowsley. So if you want to go along to one of those, some of these materials will be looked at in more depth, and there will be time for you to discuss and chat with other like-minded local people. And every local network meeting is run by just a teacher, just like Robert, who's in the classroom delivering the language. You'll all receive a link to the webinar and the resources so that you can look again and listen again. Thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful half term. And once again, a huge thank you to Robert. And we're about to stop recording the webinar. Thank you.